Hey guys, this is going to be a really quick little flea market find segment I'm going to do regarding just a small handful of items that I picked up at a farm auction that was right here in my hometown. We don't get a lot of farm auctions. This is actually an old dairy farm that had been out of business for quite a while, but the heirs of the estate who built a new house on the property and were living there, they had torn down the barn, but they left all the outbuildings up, and apparently they were chock full to the rafters with all kinds of stuff. And they had recently decided that they would liquidate a lot of that stuff, so they had an auction. They had some old farm tractors there and some old farm trucks that were kind of interesting. But they did also just had a bunch of tools and just accumulations of the hoarder. So what they did was they made these long. The auctioneer was really smart. He made some long rows of items, and it was all pallets. And on the pallets there were boxes, and in the boxes they would put a bunch of stuff, and they would seed the boxes, I believe is the term they used, to make sure there were a few choice items in with some of the junk. And basically what they did was they started at the beginning of the row, and they tried to get an opening bid. First they'd ask if there was any particular, if there was something in particular that was really interesting, like if there was a chain fall, they might just pull that off to the side and do the chain fall all by itself. But as far as like the small tools and stuff like that, they basically did it by the box. And what was smart about that was that created a situation where you had people bidding against each other for items in the box that the one or the other may not even have wanted. So that would drive the price up. For instance, if you saw a hammer in there that you wanted, and you really wanted that hammer, you'd have to bid to try and win the box, even though the guy that was bidding against you and raising the price on the whole thing, he might have been completely uninterested in that hammer. So they did that, and the other thing that they said was, well, if you won the box, you could take whatever items you wanted out of the box and you could leave the rest. They weren't worried about that. I guess they were planning on having a big dumpster, or they were going to make sure that the place was picked clean somehow. And then after if they couldn't get interest on an opening bid on a box, then they would just basically everything that was left on the pallet, they would do that. So what ended up happening there was I went down the rows. I saw some items here and there that kind of interest me, but I had a feeling that was going to be a feeding frenzy and that I wouldn't be able to get much at that auction. So I kind of laid back, but in one of the boxes, I had spotted an item that I was interested in, and I thought, geez, I've been meaning to get one of these, try and pick one of these up somewhere. And every time I see them for sale, and they even come up on eBay now, and tend to command a premium, well, I'm kind of surprised what they bring. I'm not that in love with them, but it's just the kind of thing I always said, you know what, if I can pick one of those right at a yard sale or whatever, I'll do that. So lo and behold, what ends up happening is we get to this box, and as luck would have it, there wasn't much else in the box that was of interest, apparently. And also, as luck would have it, apparently nobody was really interested in the item I wanted. Not at this particular auction, anyways. So I think I was the one and only opening bid at $10, because that's what he went down to, or it might have been $5. It was either $5 or $10. I want to say I think it might have been $10. And then there was no further advance. I was the one and only bid. I won the whole box for $10, and the auctioneer, I don't know if he knew what was in there or if he just, was being cute, but he says, oh, you got yourself a bargain there. So I reached down into the box to grab what I wanted because I didn't want any of the other junk in there. An Eagle number 66 oil can. This is the one that a lot of guys rave about. And I've seen enough guys talk about how great these are. So I said, you know what? The top's a little dented up there. But it's actually not too bad. Now, further down the row, there was a box that had several oil cans of this style in it. And there one or two of them were Eagles, but they were beat up really bad. They were really mangled compared to this one. This one's in actually pretty decent shape. So I'm pretty happy with, I think, the $10 that I spent on this. Plus, I think a 15% buyer's premium plus sales tax. So, I'm probably into this thing for about $12. That's a good buy, I think, on a American. Well, I always call them American Eagles, but apparently they're Eagle oil cans. And this is the number 66. This is the one that a lot of people tend to covet. So I go down and pull this out of the box, thinking and getting ready to announce it's the only item I'm going to take, that I'm going to leave the rest. When lo and behold, as I pull it out, I spot this screwdriver. And at first I didn't think anything of it. I said, that's just a screwdriver. But when I looked at the handle and everything, I thought, oh, that's actually a decent screwdriver. I'll snag the screwdriver. So I grabbed the screwdriver, and then I look at it. Son of a gun, it isn't a Snap-on screwdriver. It's a Snap-on model SDD4, I guess. I already looked this up. This screwdriver used brings like $20 on eBay, if you could believe that. It's actually a nice one. It's got the place for you to put a wrench on to get you a little bit extra purchase on that thing. The tip has not been molested or reground. It actually looks pretty good, not broken. Nice screwdriver there. So that turns this into an even better score. I'm glad I got this because it ended up being the only items I bought there through the auction. But I do have a couple other items I picked up that day. So there was a gentleman who was there who was working for the auction as a runner. But the auctioneer made an announcement at the beginning when he was, announcing all the terms and everything, and explained that some of the employees or the runners of the auction will be placing bids, and that they're placing bids for themselves, not on behalf of the auction, but that he does allow it. So there was an individual there who, for some reason, was buying box after box after box of tools, just all kinds of tools. Nothing really fancy, but he was buying them at $10 a pop in many cases, or more, depending on what was in there, if it was a lot of sockets and stuff. So I think he might have a used tool store or something like that. So what ended up happening was there was a box that had a bunch of ratchets, sockets, wrenches, and stuff in it. And I spotted this stud remover. Now, this stud removing tool is almost identical to one that I had seen at my used tool store that I frequent in the city. And when I was there, he had one for $7. And I asked him if he'd take $5 for it. And he said no, because he had just put it out that he was going to hold firm on $7. And I'm glad I put it down that day, because then I came across this one. And this one was in the box. I started to bid against the guy to try and get this for like $10 or $15. And then I bailed out, and the guy ended up, I think somebody else may have ended up maybe bumping it 1 or 2 times more, because they were fighting over those wrenches and sockets. So I wisely waited until they were done, and then I saw the guy who won it, and sure enough, it was the same guy who bought all the other auction, all those other previous lots with tools in it. And I went up to him and I said, hey, would you be interested in selling me one item out of that box? And he says, well, yeah, maybe. So I said, let me go, all right, if I go fish it out of the box and come bring it to you, because, he was working for the auction, so they were moving down the line. He said, yeah, sure. So I went and grabbed it, brought it over to him, and before he could even think about it, I said, $5. He took a quick look at it, and he said, yeah, sure. He probably figured it was kind of beat to hell. Well, so I got this stud removal tool for $5, and wouldn't you know it, but this is actually a made in the USA Her brand. This is actually a really nice old stud removal tool. This is a Her brand model 820, and this is actually a lot nicer than the one at the used tool store, which I think was an import. So, anyways, so I'm glad I got that for $5. And then later that same afternoon, on the other side of the property, there was a trailer with several box lots on it. And I was looking through the box lots on the trailer, and there weren't even any really tool-related items in there. And there was a box that had a whole bunch of locking plates, glass doorknobs, and the shafts that the doorknobs go, and the box-style locks for those that actually you have to mortise out the old doors to put them in there. And those are collectible. A lot of people are looking for those. Well, apparently, I see them sell all the time. So the majority of what was in there that wasn't junk was all of that lock stuff. But then I spotted this box down in the bottom, and when I saw what was in the box, I took a quick look at it and put it back down in the bottom, because I didn't want to call attention to it, because the auctioneer was already getting close by, so the crowd was building. So when it came, so I stood there and I waited for this box to come up. And when this box came up, me and this other guy started bidding on it. And I think it got to $25. I think I was at $25. And when he went to $30 on the box, I bailed, because I knew I just knew that the guy was bidding on all those locks. And my problem was, although there was a value to those locks, what I was going to end up doing was I'm going to end up having to turn around and resell all those locks. And I figured I'd just take a chance and see whether or not the guy would be interested. So as soon as he won it, I went over and I said to him, I said, hey, I said, it was mainly those locks you were after, right? Was your main interest the locks? And he said, yeah. And I said, you know what? I said, I didn't even want the locks. That's why I got off the bidding. I said, there's a something in there. I said, you'd be willing to sell it? So we agreed that for $20, I could take whatever I wanted out of that box lot, provided it wasn't one of the locks or the doorknobs or any of that hardware, door hardware. So this is what was down in there. It says it's a Norton diamond wheel. It's 5 by 1 3/4 by 1 1/4. So as soon as I saw it, I thought, I bet you this will fit one of my Hammond grinders. So it's one of these style here, the disc or dish style. It's used, okay, but it still looks like it's in pretty good shape. It says Evastar on it. It says Norton on it there. There's also a reduction bushing here, but I think with the reduction bushing out, I think this diameter is what fits on one of the Norton grinders. So I was looking into it, and I think Shars, which is a cheap import, makes wheels like these that are like $40 or $50 new. But when you get into genuine, like name brand ones like these Nortons, they're several $100s. They're crazy money. So I figured for $20 this was worth taking a chance on. And since it was outside the auction, there was no buyer's premium or tax. So for $20 I got myself this grinding wheel. And then this is the only other thing I spotted in the box is a tube of this extreme pressure lube, which this stuff here, for you, those of you who don't know, this is for your dead centers on your lathes. How often do I turn between dead centers on the lathe? Almost never. But, you know, I think way back when I first started watching machinists on YouTube, I think it was Keith Fenner was the guy that I saw actually had a tube of this stuff. And I think he mentioned something about that. He didn't even think it was made anymore. And, you know, the tube was lasting him a lifetime. But I figured, hey, he didn't value it in anything, the guy who owned the box. And so I knew I could get it for free. So I took that too. So that's it. That was my little... that was my little outing at the local auction. Ended up spending a day there. It was fun to see what stuff sold for. I saw some people I hadn't seen, ran into some people that I hadn't seen in a while, and was able to shoot the breeze with them a little bit. But all right, so that's it. Just a quick note for those of you who are watching the May 2017 Estate Series. We will be having part, I think, 18 coming up real soon. Because I did make a, what was that? I think that would be the 5th trip back. I made a 5th trip back. And currently, it's been over 2 weeks since I spoke to that individual. He hasn't called me. I haven't reached out to him. But I am, out of morbid curiosity, going to call him and see how things turned out. Because there were some larger pieces of equipment there that we couldn't come to an agreement on, because I wanted to buy them for the scrap value, because I need some of those items like a hole in the head. But I just figured if I could get them that cheaply, it would be worth the effort of hauling them out of that basement. So right now, you know, until I talk to him, this May, what you see coming up, which is going to be the items from the 5th trip out, may be the end of that. So we'll have to see. All right. Thanks for tuning in. And if you like what you see, please subscribe.